Good morning, Clackamas County. We want to welcome you to the issues meeting this morning. And looks like we'll be starting with the...
Just call on me, please, Chair.
Administrator Schmidt.
Thank you. Chair Smith is out of the office today. Vice Chair West will chair the meeting. All the other commissioners are present. Today is May 7th, 2024. We're going to start with the Housing Authority. Chair, would you please convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County?
I will now recess as the Board of Clackamas County Commissioners and convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County.
You are now meeting as the Housing Authority Board of Directors for Clackamas County. Housing Commissioner Ann Leenstra is not online. If she does join, Tony, let me know. These are requests for consent agenda. Item 1, approval of Resolution 1984, authorizing the formation of partnership entities, providing pre-development loan to the limited partnership, and conducting other pre-development activities to support the redevelopment of Clackamas Heights in alignment with the Housing Authority repositioning strategy. Total pre-development loans will not exceed $3 million and will be reimbursed at construction closing. Loan funds may include local, state, and federal sources. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. Devin Ellen, Planning Director, I forget your title, Planning Division, big important person at Housing Authority. Please go ahead, Rod. And Devin.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Clackamas Heights redevelopment project aims to replace 100 outdated public housing units with up to 250 new ones. Clackamas Heights is a 1940s public housing community, requires HUD Section 8 disposition to secure financing for replacement homes through the Housing Authority's process. The resolution authorizes the Housing Authority to form legal entities, pre-development loans to the limited partnership, and the Executive Director of the Housing Authority to advance the project in line with the Board's approved strategy with $3 million in loans to the partnerships will be reimbursed by the end of 2026. The Housing Authority has reserved $15 million in regional affordable housing bond funds for the project and other funding sources like low-income housing tax credit equity and tax-exempt bonds.
Okay.
So call for any questions from commissioners or
Any comments, any questions? Seeing none.
okay. Housing Commissioner Ann Leenstra has now joined you online. Welcome, Commissioner Leenstra.
Is she there?
Good morning.
There she is. All right, thank you. All right, we're on consent agenda still. Item 2, approval of Resolution 1985, authorizing the Housing Authority to issue and sell revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $35 million to support the development of Hillside Park Building C. Funding is through bond purchasers. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, and I should have said these three are all connected, so there's a logic to it. But anyway, the Hillside Park is a public housing project comprising 100 single-family units and duplexes dispersed over a 13.7-acre site in Milwaukee. It will be redeveloped into a 500 new affordable housing units in 2 phases. This resolution pertains to Phase 1, with the construction set to begin in June 2024, developing 275 new affordable housing units in 3 buildings, buildings A, B, and C. The inducement resolution requests approval from the Housing Board to issue and sell revenue bonds for Hillside Park Building C construction with proceeds not exceeding $35 million to secure financing for 100 new units providing affordable housing for low-income households.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, good morning. I had some questions about the process for the selling of the revenue bonds that I bounced off the county administrator yesterday. He got back to me with some information. I do appreciate that. But the broker that you use to sell the revenue bonds is the state, as I understand it. And my question now is, after so many questions were answered yesterday, so the Housing Authority here in Clackamas County, when those bonds are sold, do you monitor the interest rate that will be on those bonds that we have to pay, or the coupon? Do you have any kind of sight over that?
Yes, so The state issued, we applied for these tax exempt bonds through the state, and they allocated volume cap to the Housing Authority, and we are selling these bonds to support the project to a bank who will purchase the bonds and then loan those funds into the project. And the note holder will be the project partnership. And so we'll know what that interest rate is once they purchase the bonds.
Okay,
But-
and so then the sale of these bonds will be used exclusively for the Building C portion of the project?
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll go back later on for some more bonds when
For
it comes
A
time.
and B, but those will
Yeah.
be issued through the state.
Yes, okay, well, good, thank you.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Thank you. Seeing none.
All right, item 3, approval of a resolution 1986 authorizing the Housing Authority's submittal of Section 18 disposition applications for the Clackamas Heights, Oregon City View Manor public housing portfolios, the Scattered Sites public housing portfolio, and the remaining contiguous public housing units. Funding is from federal sources. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, the Housing Authority of Clackamas County has the oldest public housing in the state of Oregon. We plan to utilize HUD's repositioning programs to convert our subsidy from a public housing platform under Section 9 to a voucher assistance platform under Section 8. The 3 applications that we're speaking about are the Clackamas Heights, Oregon City View Manor Public Housing Portfolio, that's 200 units. The Scattered Sites Public Housing Portfolio, that's 131 units. And the remaining contiguous public housing units, which are 14 units. This will allow the Housing Authority to shift away from traditional public housing that is reliant on diminishing federal subsidies and transition to a voucher-based platform that relies on public-private partnerships to construct, rehabilitate, and operate affordable units.
Questions, concerns?
Just to comment on all 3 of these, and to say that during my tenure here, 14 years, I know thoughts and ideas and visions for these properties were underway before I got here, but wow, it takes a long time, doesn't it?
Yes.
But it is, worth mentioning, I won't say celebrating, because we're going to be here for a number of approvals as this project moves forward, but the fact that we're starting to break ground or near breaking ground on Hillside is a good move. And knowing these properties and being on the property, it's nice to see some of this old stock, not so good condition, being raised and having an additional housing, 250 units at Clackamas Heights is pretty significant. That's what it is, 250 units at Clackamas Heights, and it's 400 ultimately at Hillside? 450?
500, yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you for all the good work you're doing.
Well, this is really Devin's work, so.
Amazing, good stuff. Any other comments
So I thought it was 500 at Hillside. What was it?
500 units, that's correct.
at Hillside?
Okay, yes, right? Okay, 500. Just
I had one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Scholl.
I'm just curious, as we shift away from financing from HUD and HUD regulations to this public-private partnership, is that something that the Housing Authority is geared up for in your staffing? Is that going to be a challenge for you?
We're just shifting the subsidy from public housing to Section 8, and we already administer a pretty robust Section 8 program.
Okay.
So I feel that we're prepared.
Okay, good, thanks.
Anything else? Not seeing anything. What's next, Gary?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Leenstra, for joining today. Next, Chair, would you please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District?
Thank you. I will now adjourn as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
You are now meeting as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board of Directors. This is request for consent agenda. Item 1, approval of a goods and services contract with Northwest Playground Equipment for supply and install of playground equipment and surfacing for the Concord Park. Contract value is $662,312.95. Funding is through Metro Local Share and Oregon Parks and Recreation Department Local Government Grant Program grant proceeds. No county general funds are involved. So Kia, you'd come to the table, please. Kia Selly is the director of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. She'll give a quick 1 to 2 minute update. Have you done this yet? Is this your first time, consent?
This is my first time.
Okay, welcome.
Well, welcome.
Congratulations. So
And
just
do I need to turn on the mic?
It's already on.
Please.
Okay,
Yes.
excellent.
Give me a quick update, and the board will ask any questions.
Okay, thank you, Gary, and good morning, Vice Chair West and directors. Last November, the board approved a contract to construct the park, playground, and other site improvements to support the renovated community center at the Concord property. A range of play equipment is included and in this contract, and the surfacing is rubber mat and synthetic turf, both for durability and to provide a safe surface that is also accessible to children and their caregivers that might be rolling or walking. Design changes have been made to the playground since you last saw the project. The intent is to actually reduce the scope of the improvement so that we can stay within the construction budget. The changes, however, won't impact the long-term durability or maintainability of the playground, the quality of the play and the learning opportunities available at the playground, the accessibility that I mentioned earlier, or, as importantly, the requirements of the grants that we've received for this playground. We've actually received 2 grants, one from Metro and one from the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. So construction at the Concord property is already underway, and we are looking forward to opening that site next summer in 2025.
Terrific. Any comments? Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, good morning. I can't help but comment on the $662,312.95 price for this playground. It just appears to me as to be very expensive. Did this come with multiple bids?
So we have one bid right now from Northwest Playground. If you'd like to get more information about that, I can ask Jason Varga, the project manager, to join us.
Well, I mean, maybe we can talk about that later, but I'm just curious as to if this was a low bid out of multiple bids, or if this was just one bid. You know, I'm always looking at these numbers because I'm concerned as one of your directors to see how that's going to impact your budget. So your NCPRD budget, this is programmed, this amount?
Yes, it is. That's correct. We actually have this playground in our budget right now. And to respond to your question, Director, you're right. The cost of this play equipment is expensive. Most of this cost is actually the rubber surfacing. That mat is very expensive, but it does provide the durability and as well as the safe surface if children are to fall onto that surface. But I will acknowledge that the price tag is high.
Yeah. Well, things certainly have changed since I was a little boy, because when you went to the playground and you fell down, you crashed and it hurt. So thank you. I appreciate the information.
Anything further? Questions, concerns? Seeing none.
Okay, thank you. Next, Chair, would you please convene as the Clackamas County Development Agency?
I will now adjourn as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board and convene as the Clackamas County Development Agency Board.
Thank you. This is Advisory Board appointment. Tony, go ahead, please.
Development Agency Budget Committee currently has 3 openings on the commission due to term expirations. The Budget Committee consists of 10 members, 5 of which are public. The other 5 members are, of course, the Board of County Commissioners serving as the Budget Committee. Through a recruitment process, 3 applications were received. Recommendation is as follows: Ryan Founds to a first term, Tammy Carpenter to a first term, and Andrea Smith to a first term.
Seek a motion to
Any
approve.
motion for,
I move to approve the Development Agency Budget Committee as read.
Second.
we have a motion by Commissioner Scholl and a second by Commissioner Savas. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Director Schrader,
Aye.
Director Savas,
Aye.
Director Scholl,
Aye.
Vice Chair West.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Moving onward, we have
Very good.
another, a
Yes.
few of these.
Yes, there's several of these Budget Committee appointments. Next, Chair, would you please convene as the Library Service District of Clackamas County?
Yes, I will. I will now adjourn as the Clackamas County Development Agency Board and convene as the Library Service District of Clackamas County County Board.
Thank you. This is also an advisory appointment. Tony, go ahead, please.
The Library District of Clackamas County Budget Committee currently has 2 openings on the commission due to term expirations. Through a recruitment process, 8 applications were received, Interviews were conducted with 5, and 2 are recommended for appointment. Recommendations are Caroline Kepnitzer and Mark Asland to a first term.
Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the library board budget committee nominees.
Seconded.
We have a motion by Commissioner Savas and a second by Commissioner Scholl. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, Tony, please take the poll.
Director Schrader,
Aye.
Director Scholl,
Aye.
Director Savas,
Aye.
Vice Chair West.
Aye, the motion passes 4-0. The next one.
Chair, would you please convene as the Clackamas County Service District Number 5?
I will now adjourn as the Library Service District of Clackamas County Board of Commissioners and convene as the Clackamas County Service District Number 5 Board.
And this is the Street Lighting District for the county, also an advisory board appointment. Tony, go ahead, please.
The Clackamas County Service District Number 5 Budget Committee currently has 2 openings due to member resignations. Through a recruitment process, 4 applications were received, 2 are recommended for appointment. Recommendation is as follows: Ryan Founds to a first term and Mark Aslan to a first term.
Can I have a motion?
I move to approve the Clackamas County Service District Number 5 Budget Committee as read.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Scholl and a second by Commissioner Schrader. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Director Savas,
Aye.
Director Schrader,
Aye.
Director Scholl,
Aye.
Vice Chair West.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. I will now adjourn as the Water Environment Services District Board and convene as the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners.
Sorry, Chair, that's one ahead. So if you'll
Oh.
now convene as the Water Environment Services.
I'm sorry.
Board, please.
I will now adjourn as the Clackamas County Service District Number 5 Board and convene as the Water Environment Services District Board.
Thank you. You're now meeting as Water Environment Services Board of Directors. This is request for consent agenda. Item 1, approval of a contract with SFE Global for the purposes of providing pigging services for the Bolton Force Main. Total contract value is $287,350. Funding through Water Environment Services Sanitary Sewer Operating Funds. No county general funds are involved. Greg Geist, Director of Water Environment Services. And can you define what pigging means, please?
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, directors. Yes, I'm here to talk about pigging today, and not just any pigging, smart pigging. We have about 6,000 feet of 16-inch pressurized pipe that goes from Westland under the Willamette River and off the other side. It was installed in the 1980s, and we have never taken a look at it. We have had some pipe breaks in that force main on the Westland side, not in the river, thankfully. And based on our analysis of the pump time runs and the capacity that we're moving, we think we have debris in the pipe. So basically, a pig is a plug that we push through the pipe, and it cleans the pipe. A smart pig does all that and senses the condition, corrosion, thickness, things like that of the pipe itself, so that we have a good idea what condition it's in. We expect to have this work done by the end of June.
Mr. Geist, what is the pipe made out of?
I don't know this one particularly, typical like ductile iron.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
So is this common, or is it because there's not much slope?
It is common over time, yeah. I mean, there are some lines that are cruise pig on a regular basis in the Clackamas industrial area. They might get filled with grease. That particular line is greased. But we don't do smart pigging. We don't have the technology to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Onward.
Okay, item 2, approval of a contract with Century West Engineering Corporation for engineering services necessary to design the Rock Creek Extension Project. Contract value is $486,440.90. Funding through Water Environment Services Sanitary Sewer System Development Charge Funds. No county general funds are involved.
So thank you, Gary. This is phase 1 of the design for what we call our Rock Creek Extension, going from, Troge Road and 172nd northeast towards, the county line, Johnson Creek, or not Johnson Creek, it's the name of that road.
You're talking King,
No, it's the one that goes out to Boring from,
212?
no. Anyway, it runs northeast from 172nd Troge Road. So yeah, we have a lot of property to evaluate and alignment to establish, property acquisition to do, but this is the design, phase 1 of the design of that project. Overall, it's a $12 million project. We will come back to you with future phases of both design and then ultimately construction.
Okay. Questions, concerns, comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Sol.
Mr. Geis, while you're here, my question is not on this, but when does the Clackamas Crunchinator boring machine arrive?
Well, we had a little delay. Unfortunately, it was scheduled to come through Baltimore, and we all know that there's problems there. So now I think it's coming into Virginia. It was originally scheduled for mid-July, and now it's going to be late July, early August.
Okay.
And
All right,
we'll get it in the ground as soon as possible. We're digging the shaft now to set the machine.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, would you now reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will now adjourn as the Water Environment Services District Board and convene as the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners.
Thank you. You'll meet as the Board of Commissioners for the rest of today's meeting. Next is request for consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. First, County Administration, item 1, approval of a settlement agreement with Clackamas Progress Partners for a relief event notice and written report number 3 for the replacement county courthouse. The agreement value is $144,000 plus any additional costs imposed by the City of Oregon City. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. Nancy Bush, County Operating Officer, Andrew Naylor, Assistant County Counsel. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. So this is the agreement that we have been talking to you about and the settlement that we have for Highfield Court. And if you recall, Highfield Court is something that is being required in the Type 2 decision by Oregon City. So the number is actually $144,092.03. So that will be corrected on Thursday, whenever you have the signature. And we're asking 2 things today, which is, of course, to say that this is a go and you're ready to sign. And also, this will have a change order that will be attached to it, and we'd like to have Gary Schmidt sign that change order when it comes in, just to expedite.
Okay.
I don't know if you have anything you want to add?
Any Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, Nancy, this says that agreement value is $144K, $92.03, like you said, plus any additional costs imposed by Oregon City. Could you explain what that is?
Yes, what that is Oregon City comes to inspect, and right now the contract is actually out, and they're actually working on Highfield Court now. In the unlikely event, Oregon City said, well, we need something else here, that cost will be on the county.
Okay,
We're hoping that doesn't happen. It's not impossible, but we're hoping it won't happen.
all right, okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Seeing no further questions.
If the costs are significantly higher, I will not sign it, and we'll bring it back to the board.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, Health, Housing, Human Services, item 1, approval of a cooperative lease agreement with Canby Foursquare Church to provide space for the Women, Infants, and Children program. No fiscal impact, no county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hello again. As you're aware, Women, Infants, and Children improves health, reduces fatal fetal deaths and benefits local businesses in Clackamas County by reducing fetal deaths, reducing preterm birth, improving children's growth, and increasing healthy food intake. This no-cost lease agreement will provide space for the Women, Infants, and Children's Program so Canby residents can continue accessing WIC services.
Thank you. Any further? No.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Mr. Cook, this is really an important thing when a church provides this kind of service to the people of Clackamas County. This is what we need in terms of a whole holistic county, business, government, churches, all working together to provide for the needs of Clackamas County. So please pass along to Canby Foursquare Church our sincere thanks.
Sure will.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Okay. Item 2, approval of a board order approving of issuance of purchase orders for case management software licenses and services through SHI Incorporated under a cooperative contract. Purchase order value not to exceed $316,880 for 4 years. Funding is through a State of Oregon grant. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, in 2001, the Social Services Division of H3S initiated the utilization of the TheraP software for case management services. This was made possible through a software license agreement. We continue to utilize the software for client service delivery, necessitating additional annual licenses.
Questions, comments? Seeing none?
Item 3, approval of a revenue intergovernmental grant agreement with the State of Oregon's Housing and Community Services Department for the Long-Term Rent Assistance Program and services related to the governor's state of emergency due to homelessness. Agreement value is $4,958,448.98 for 14 months. Funding is through the State of Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, last year we received one-time funding allocation in May and December related to the state response to homelessness for rapid rehousing program. This agreement expands and enhances the state's response to the homelessness crisis by allocating funds for long-term solutions to assist households that require more extensive support for housing stability beyond what rapid rehousing programs offer.
Questions, concerns, thoughts? Commissioner Scholl?
Mr. Cook, this almost $5 million for long-term rent assistance, is that the total of monies you need for the next 14 months for long-term rental assistance, or are you also utilizing money from the Supportive Housing Services measure for this purpose? What I'm trying to get at here is the situation becoming a greater need for this long-term rental assistance? Are we staying the same? Is the need going down in terms of the cost?
This is really an expansion for us. This allows us to, because we have the Metro money is in the urban brown growth boundary. So this allows us to go to the rural areas. So for us, it's a icing on the cake, so to speak, where it's adding dollars to the pot so we can expand our services further out. Overall, I'd say that housing, I haven't seen any numbers that would indicate that it's increasing. Okay. We've been just dealing with those who are on the streets and getting people housed through this, and keeping them housed is what this is doing.
Yeah.
It's all those wraparound services that we're providing.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Director Cook, it's also my understanding that as we had the SHS dollars flood in,
yes,
this allows us to reallocate funds to areas that have been underserved in the county that don't have the benefit of those dollars in their communities, like the more rural parts of the county. So it allows us to be much more flexible with these funds based on the funds from SHS, which are restricted within the metro area. Am I understanding? Is that correct?
You're exactly right.
Do you have anything to add, Adam?
Thanks, Commissioner. Adam Brown, Deputy Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. So Rod was right. This is going to be directed to program capacity in the rural communities. So if you remember, the initial allocation of resources from the state was for outreach and rapid rehousing. And we exceeded the state's goal. Originally, our goal was 130 households. We raised our hand and said we could do more. They allocated additional resources for us to serve 40 more households. We were amazingly successful in that rapid rehousing push. The long-term rent assistance is that, so rapid rehousing was intended to serve people for up to 12 months. We dedicated that to services in the rural communities, worked with Ant Farm, Clackamas Women's Services, et cetera, to get people into housing as quickly as we could. But we always knew that that was limited to 12 months. Well, the state said, bear with us, we're going to get additional resources allocated to support people in the long run, knowing that some people need support longer than that 12 months. This is the funding that does that. So that in Senate Bill 5511, the state made good on that commitment, allocated funds for a new state-funded long-term rent assistance program. So this then allows us to sustain those households. And you might recall us telling you before that when we raised our hand and said 40 more households, that then fed into the subsequent allocation of long-term resources. So it was better because it meant that we got more program capacity for that second allocation because it's pegged to the original goals. So this is a huge win for us. You're exactly right. We're repurposing resources to serve our rural communities, and this is going to go a long way towards addressing that need.
Commissioner Paul Savas.
Yeah, well, thanks for the great work, and thanks for exceeding, our that initial goal and getting the additional revenues to serve this. I have a rough question, and really it's trying to understand what the long-term strategy is from the state as, anticipating a glide path to, when this funding stops. I hate to see a cliff, right? Because a lot of people find themselves out on the street. What is the state doing for programming to help people get back to work, get into permanent housing, so they can stand on their own 2 feet when this funding ceases?
That's a really great question, and I think that's part of our strategy around our recovery-oriented system of care, right? We're trying to catch people now, solve this problem that's a pretty acute problem in our community, but we know that our long-term success is a function of our ability to improve self-sufficiency and support people. So we're pivoting right now on that in our SHS funds, right? We spent the first couple of years building the programs, but we know now that we need to help people move on and build the self-sufficiency that they need to maintain stable housing on their own. There's always going to be really vulnerable folks that we need to support in the long run. We're equipped to do that. We've talked a lot about that. But in order to keep the throughput moving through our system, we do need to do that. So I think this state-funded program is like maybe 1 or 2 years behind that SHS effort, but we're looking at it in the same way.
Yep.
Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, my question was very similar to Commissioner Savas's question. As I've got around and seen some of our residents who require long-term rental assistance, some of them, it appears to me, will need it for the rest of their lives. And so we have your housing authority working on so many low-income housing projects, and we have, 1,500 plus housing assets for low-income people. So again, some people will need help their whole life. Others may just need some training, like you were mentioning with Commissioner Savas's question, to get to a point where they can become self-sufficient once again. And so I wonder what our county social services, how are they being integrated with this long-term rent problem to identify people who could be helped to, at some point in time, become self-sufficient. Are we doing enough there?
I'm going to interrupt. So this is consent agenda, commissioners. I think we need to bring back to issues a larger discussion about this because you clearly have a lot of questions, but maybe we stick to the consent for now.
Yeah,
Chair,
okay.
would that be all right?
Yeah, I admit I was kind of getting off there, but I am concerned about it. But thank you. And
To this issue, Commissioner Schrader.
I just wanted to say that really, who you're coordinating with, I would assume, is our workforce system. And that would be Clackamas Workforce Partnership. That would be the local community college. And we are working at the state level to streamline the system to make sure that people get individualized training as quickly as possible. And I sit on that board, so I'll be glad to maybe have an opportunity to sit and talk with you about what some of those changes are. But really, this is a workforce issue, and we have a system in place in order to get people located there, and that should be a significant part of the continuum you're talking about, I think, Adam. Thanks.
And as we close out this piece of the conversation, it's just really great to see a year and a half ago when we didn't have these resources, we were often talking about real struggles and tensions between communities and those that are homeless in their communities or have these different struggles or issues or need these supports. And we talked about Malala a lot early on, but it's really great that we've been able to see these funds come in, free up other resources, and be targeted with to provide the supports necessary in our rural communities. So thank you for your presentation today and your update.
Item 4, approval of a revenue intergovernmental grant agreement with the State of Oregon's Housing and Community Services Department for outreach services for rural communities related to the governor's state of emergency due to homelessness response. Agreement value is $1,850,000 for 1 year. Funding through the State of Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, and this pot of money is the focus outreach services. This is an extension of what was started by House Bill 5019 for the continued emergency response from the State of Oregon emergency order regarding the homeless crisis. This will offer comparable services to outreach programming currently funded through supportive housing services to residents who live beyond the urban growth boundary.
Any questions, concerns? Seeing none?
All right, thank you. So we will come back to you at issues, commissioners, for a larger open conversation to discuss rental assistance and homelessness and how we're using the governor's money. So let's please come back, staff, for that. But for today, all of these items for consent agenda will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda for your final action. Thank you, H3S team. Rod, you might want to stay. Next, Housing Authority repositioning draft support letter. You're well aware of the work we're doing for repositioning. However, we need a support letter from you, Board of County Commissioners. There's a draft letter in your packet. Rod and Adam will quickly explain what it is and seeking your approval today. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to pass this over to Adam because he's been working on the letter and with the cities around their support letters for this effort.
Yeah, so Commissioners, as part of our repositioning plan, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development requires us to consult with local jurisdictions that are affected by the repositioning. So in this case, that's the disposition of the assets. So for Hillside Park, our engagement with the city of Milwaukee, that already ran its course, but now we're here with Clackamas Heights, Oregon City View Manor, and all of the scattered sites. So we've talked to you about the need to secure a letter of support from each of the cities, but some of the properties are located within unincorporated Clackamas County, and then also Oregon City View Manor and Clackamas Heights are within Clackamas County. So as the jurisdiction responsible for that body of work, we also need a letter of support from the Clackamas County Board for the relevant properties, and that's from the Clackamas County Board, effectively, to the Housing Authority of Clackamas County, showing its support that we can demonstrate to HUD.
You're writing a letter to yourselves, but we need to do that.
Any questions, thoughts?
I hear me.
Do we need a motion this morning?
Yes.
Can I have a motion?
I move to approve the letter regarding support of 3 Section 18 disposition applications.
Second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Scholl and a second from Commissioner Savas. Any further discussion on this letter and the motion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Vice Chair West.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Next,
Gary.
next topic, Recovery Center Task Group. Cindy Becker from County Administration will present. There's a memo in your packet seeking your approval or revisions to this proposal. So Cindy will come forward and discuss with you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nice to see you. Nice to see the sun maybe come out as well. So I'm here to talk about a task group that we would like to form to help us and guide us and inform us as we move forward on on building the Recovery Center. So you have the charter for the task group as well as the recommendation of membership. One thing I do want to say, you'll notice that there are a lack of providers on this task group, and that is because of a possible conflict of interest. When we issue the notice of funding opportunity, we can't have providers advantaged by these conversations being the task group. So anyway, the purpose of the task group, they're not an advisory group. I call it a task force. You can call it a tiger team, whatever. But we really are looking for basically the stakeholders in this whole initiative, and to not only provide input, but identify areas, concerns, identify barriers, help us also come up with solutions, not just identifying barriers. And we also, we have a diverse group because we really want to foster the collaboration across the system. So it's, so we have folks from the medical community, the law enforcement, advocacy, funders, and as we identify other organizations, other stakeholders, we would certainly add them. And we also want to ask this group to help communicate and educate their respective stakeholders. So as we move forward, it's not just coming from the county, but in fact, this is a group effort that we are hoping folks will help us spread the word. We're looking at meeting monthly, and we're hoping to start in June. So would seek your approval to establish this task group, and any questions, feel free.
Cindy, I have a question. These are the task group members, these are committed members to the task group, they've signed on?
No, we haven't gone forward because we're waiting for your approval. I don't want to get ahead of the
Okay, so
board.
this is the list for us to say, can we start the outreach to these members to join the task?
Yes, we've identified individuals for each of these, but we haven't done any outreach until we hear from you.
And did everybody have some input? What are the input? Why these members specifically? I know that we met about it already before this meeting, but was this presented by the staff, or did other county commissioners have the ability to weigh in
This
on
is by
members for
staff.
this? By staff, okay.
These are basically folks that who have been at the table in lots of different other group meetings and lots of other opportunities and events that are really committed to this whole movement and whole initiative, and/or have a stake in it.
Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Good morning, Cindy. Does this task group come with any cost to the county to operate this?
No, we'll be staffing it.
Okay. And what is the scope of effort of this task group? Are they going to come back to the Board of Commissioners with a estimate of the scope of the recovery center, the size, the number of beds, and that kind of information?
Well, they're not quote unquote, design experts.
Yeah.
So we are going to be, as we move through the process, as we do the NOFA, they're going to be advising us on things that we should make sure we put in the NOFA. And then as we start getting proposals, and we'll certainly involve them. But they're not an official advisory group.
But they will move us toward a greater clarity on the scope, potential scope of the project.
Yes.
So we know what we're dealing with.
Yes.
And you mentioned if this was approved, they would begin in June.
That's what we're
And so-
hoping for.
And so what's the time frame for them to do their function?
Well, we would like them to stay on until we have something up and running, really. So I'm thinking, at least a year, 18 months. We're looking at, we know we've got a long process just in terms of getting something constructed or built, and so we're looking for opportunities to do some short-term services as well. And so we would like their advice
Okay.
as we move forward. What's the best to go first, go second?
Yeah.
What are some of the capacity issues that they've seen? These folks
Okay.
also have been involved in similar, not a recovery campus per se, but they've been involved in services to people with substance use disorders in other venues. So we're going
I
to look
got
for
it.
their experience.
Understood. Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, I like how this also is in alignment with the recovery-oriented systems care, because we continue to engage all of our stakeholders. And there's a variety, and the ones that we can, there's reasons why service providers aren't on here, because that would be a conflict potentially. So, but these are really important stakeholders in the community. I don't see anybody from maybe the business or the faith community, and that might be an interesting perspective to include in this list. Business advocates, and we're seeing a lot of our businesses and communities that are involved in business wanting to step into this space and be helpful, like Jen Fowler and others. And then just something around the faith community it would be, I think, interesting to partner. Like, we have the Foursquare Church out of Canby that we mentioned earlier, and that we were partnering with, and others. So I think that might diversify it a little bit. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Cindy?
I think that's great. And if you have specific individuals, we'd be happy to include them. I think those are great ideas. One thing I did want to mention, the Homeless Solutions Coalition of Clackamas County, they're the group that are running the Navigation Center. So again, we want to make sure there's that connectivity, so they would be on the task group as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd be happy to add business and faith community.
Okay. Commissioner Schrader, you're up.
Yeah, you might, if you're thinking of the business community, you might be thinking of maybe some folks in the Oregon City Business Alliance. I know that they have been very, very involved in this issue, and it would give another business viewpoint, as well as having Dan there. As far as the faith community, that's great, but I also know that I believe a lot of the Homeless Solutions folks who work in that coalition are from the faith-based community as well. And, that includes folks that run the Father's Heart and then help us do the housing. I know in it's in your neck of the woods. It's the place where it's a motel.
Oh, the Econo Lodge?
The Econo Lodge, too. I think the same people who are working with the folks in Father's Heart also do a lot of work at the Econo Lodge as well. So some of those folks might be a good opportunity.
And did you say the Clackamas County Business Alliance? Is that what you're referring to? Okay.
They're good. And the Oregon City Business Alliance as well. Oregon City is also extremely involved in that.
North Clackamas Chamber,
North
Wilsonville
Clackamas
Chamber.
Yep.
Commissioner Schrader, as my brain freezes,
Yeah, me too.
workforce connection to this, because at the self-sufficiency piece, at the care continuum, at the end of that is some workforce stuff. It's some back on your feet again, have a paycheck, stability that we keep talking about. So maybe incorporating education and a little education piece, maybe that's Clackamas Community College, and maybe some workforce partnerships.
Clackamas Workforce Partnership, yeah, that'd be another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say so.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I've listened to you all. I just want to go back to, I guess, the charter, and as I read the bullets as provided here, and understanding what we're trying to do here, I'm kind of concerned maybe we might be diluting, and there might be some educational challenges. I think the list, if I may, you have, some of the hospitals, Providence, for example, there's, at the core, it is somewhat of a faith-based, there is some representation in that world. There's also the lived experience aspect, or providers that are on the ground. You've got a pretty good range here, and I'd just be concerned about bringing someone from a business perspective who doesn't have that experience and bring in the value to the, to, again, this task group, the purpose, the mission. But mind you, that what I do want to say is that some of these are businesses, and they perform a substantial amount of, they are a business, they are employers. So you look at some of these agencies, they may not be, we would consider the mom and pop kind of things, but for this kind of purpose, for this recovery center and designing it, I would just be concerned about diluting it and not getting the value out of that input. This is not about, again, I'm just kind of looking at the purpose of the group, and to design the center. So I wouldn't want to see it get bogged down. But I'm not saying not, but I think with that lived experience and hands-on type of work, boots on the ground, those are the people that probably can help us the most.
I don't disagree. I just think one of the best things we can do is when you have somebody that intersects like a Dan Fowler significantly with the business community and also has a giant heart for this, or even like a Neil Nedaleski who's a developer and they want to build properties and facilities that are appropriate for the people that need that treatment and care and that's tailored to their specific needs. I think I would like to see some of those people at the table. Maybe there's a coalition of maybe there's somebody at the Catholic Church, or I don't know. Not a specific faith of any kind, but I think those are good holistic approaches to have when we're going to look at that type of property. I don't want it to get too big either, because you could go down the rabbit hole and have everybody from every group ever possible, and that's just not realistic. But I think there's an opportunity to diversify this a little bit more with like 3 to 5 in that range that aren't represented now. I don't know what you guys think. This is good also the way that's presented, but being mindful of your concern while also maybe expanding the tent a little bit.
Yeah, well, I guess another way of saying what I want to say is that all of these organizations have experience with that population we're trying to serve. And if we keep the focus with people that have that experience with the population we're trying to serve, not those that are compassionate about that population, but have that hands-on experience, and I think that's a pretty well-rounded group. And if that is the emphasis, it's not about how we fund it. Maybe how we fund it might be a different group, or how people can contribute to it. But for development of what it looks like, how to build it, scale, all of that, I think you've got a pretty good range of folks, and other people may not understand that world. So that's just where I'm kind of looking into this from that aspect. I'm not looking for head nods.
Well, are we wanting to give a different direction than what's given here? I mean, it's minimal tweaks here we've mentioned today for this task group charter, or are we ready to move forward with this with maybe those minor suggestions we've made? I feel like that the board wants to give that direction. What do you guys think?
Well, maybe we ought to just put a cap on how many additional.
Say 3 to 5 max.
I mean, I'd look for staff's recommendation.
So we have about 20 organizations listed on here. One of the things we based on this conversation, we may want to consider is this group isn't intended to be all things to all people. And so we may want to have some kind of a gathering, or not a conference, but a one-day event that really does speak to the larger group and getting their involvement and engagement and just understanding what's happening. So more for the general population. But we're really, I would hope we don't make it much larger, because it's really difficult to have people meeting monthly, that 25 people, that's not going to happen. So if we can focus it and then look at potential other venues to address some of the other input that you're talking about, I think that would make sense.
Two names that just are great fits for this that aren't in this list, and I've said his name 2 times already. Dan Fowler would be a fantastic partnership, especially if the navigation center works congruently with how this is working, and he is knowledgeable in this space, and he is, a businessman. Another one that's been involved in this space, working with the Salvation Army and working to be the business representative for Metro with SHS funding and all of those meetings we've been having down in Portland, is former State Representative Patrick Sheehan. So those are two that they check multiple boxes of a little bit different viewpoint. So I would I didn't ask them to throw their names out there, but I think those are two good names potentially to put onto this that would bring a little bit more of that, and they could contribute in a meaningful way, along with kind of enriching it a little bit, so.
Well, I mean, I do think oversight was CWP. We should definitely add them as well. Clackamas
Yeah.
Workforce Partnerships, that's a key.
Yeah, I mean, those three right there alone, I think would make this just a little bit better of a list. And I'd be fine stopping at that.
And I just have my line. I just wanted to make one more comment. One of the reasons I just always mention the businesses, because sometimes when we face, some of the challenges that we have when we're doing something new like this, someone like a Dan Fowler and other folks in the business community can help us move through that because of their larger trust, with the business folks. And the reason I mention that too is because that's what they actually did that in Lane County, and that's what helped them move forward to be so successful, because they had those champions. So when a business said, we don't want this next to us, this is going to do this, this, and this, you could have that alternate voice of someone who they know and work with and have built community with, that can say, no, actually, it works and here's why. So it helps to move that process along. That's the only reason I suggested that piece of it.
Thank you, Commissioner Schroeder. Gary, it looks like we're kind of
sorry.
coming down to a decision point here. Do we need a motion on this today?
Need a motion to approve with the amendments you suggested, and I would suggest just say you want to add a business rep and a faith-based rep, and would you allow staff to figure out who those are? And not focus on numbers, but we'll add that to the group if you'd agree to that. Thank you.
So,
I would entertain a motion.
so move.
Second.
There we go.
Commissioner Schrader has made a motion to approve the charter with amendments, and we have a second from Commissioner Savas. Any further discussion on the issue? The motion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Vice Chair West.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Cindy, so much. Thank you.
Next, Advisory Board and Commission appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
The Emergency Preparedness Council, staffed by the Office of Disaster Management, currently has 2 openings on the commission due to term expirations. 9 members are allowed to 3-year terms. Through a recruitment process, 4 applications were received. 2 are recommended for appointment. Both are new. Recommendation to first terms, Jana Norton and Carol Bernard.
Move to approve the nominees.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the nominees by Commissioner Savas and a second by Commissioner Schrader. Discussion, I have a question. To be on this Emergency Preparedness Council, you have to live in Clackamas County, right? I'm just
Yes.
curious. I know there's a very small number of residents that also have a Portland address, so I'm assuming that that's what this is.
Yes, we do cross-reference. They do have to be in Clackamas County.
We check all that. Okay, yeah. I have nothing else. Anybody else have any questions, concerns? Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Vice Chair West.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Moving right along.
Thank you. Next, review of your board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, May 9th, 2024 at 10 a.m. You'll have all the consent agenda items you discussed today. Your normal course of business. You should conduct the meeting do the meeting with 1 hour total so that you can get to your State of the County event, which is that afternoon. So we'll have to have a shorter business meeting on Thursday. If you have any questions on any item of the business agenda, please let me know prior to Thursday, and staff and I are happy to answer it for you. Final item today is Commissioner Communications.
Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Wasn't ready. Sprung that on me pretty fast. Transportation updates. We had the organizational meeting for the Region 1 Act yesterday, and next week, or this week, on Thursday, the OTC will be meeting, I believe, in Ontario, so I will not be traveling to that, and I will not be testifying to the OTC. We're kind of letting things find their way right now with regard to what the state is going to be doing. Last week, there was a list revealed of the locations and the schedule for the Joint Transportation Committee's tour around the Oregon, with the going out around the state listening for the 2025 funding package. Tremendous amount of work and effort being done to, if not tolling, then what? You're going to hear that a lot. I'm trying to get a sense of how hard either the state or ODOT is working on Plan Bs, right? What are some of those ideas, and are they ready for prime time or not? I know that that's a delicate topic, because not, raising fees or taxes or whatever, however it is viewed, is never popular. But we do have a lot of projects in the queue, and we can audit all day long, and maybe we can find a few dollars here and there, but the substantial size of the projects, if we still want to keep them on the list, and we have approved them on several lists, then we've got to find a way to fund them. And what's there, I don't care if they find 20% loss or 20% findings of new money, it's still not going to cover the size of these projects. So there's going to have to be a discussion, and those who will be voting on that will be our state legislators in 2025, if there is something viable that can be put on the table. VMT is being talked a lot. I know there's some privacy concerns about that. I know that is, some people see that as not a good thing. I think there is technology out there that can definitely narrow any potential risk of tracking or monitoring. For all of us carry around these iPhones, we're already vulnerable I think people have no idea how trackable we are right now with our phones. So what's being proposed is there is technology out there that can literally limit it down to the VIN number and how many miles have been traveled. That's doable in today's technology. And if you have a GIS that says you're in Oregon, then that will free up any concerns that if you travel to Washington or California. But if the GIS is just going to monitor that, those miles traveled within the state, that shouldn't be a privacy breach. But we are traveling. I think the estimated amount of people traveling in vehicles is 35 billion miles a year. Think about that, 35 billion miles per year. So if you were to apply a penny or 2 pennies to that and substitute gas tax in lieu of, so you're not being double taxed, that's easy for me to get there, knowing that if I have a choice. That's what the Orgo program is founded on. We're not going to be charging you more. We're just going to be charging you differently. And I think that's the theory. But we'll see. I know there's a lot of emphasis around how we get people feel that they want to get people with electric cars or hybrid cars to pay more. This would do that. This would to share that responsibility for the wear and tear on our roads in a far better way than today. That's what I have for today.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I have some good news in that the National Association of Counties has appointed me to continue to be on their prosperity initiative, and that will mean this go round, that when I do visit the National Association of Counties, that they will be paying for me to go there. So that's a good thing. I've been up enough in the organization now that some of the committees that I have been appointed to now have become integral to not just what we're doing here, but also what we're doing nationally. And with that, I think that's why I want to talk about the Recovery Center. I'm so pleased that this is moving ahead so quickly, and I want to thank you, Commissioner West, for helping to push this forward, because when you talk about recovery, when you talk about prosperity, it includes the elements of housing. It includes the elements of recovery and getting people the help they need if they're dealing with addictions. It involves also getting them a job. and housing. And one of the things that we found out, it can't just be one piece of it. It has to be a continuum of multiple things that need to happen that become integrated in a package. And so my hope is, as we move forward with this, I'll have an opportunity to really tout our successes here in Clackamas County, because the model we are building here is really what I call a prosperity model that will move people away from intergenerational poverty up the scale so they can become participating citizens in a democracy. That's the actual goal. And one of the things I'd like to do, colleagues, is have an opportunity to have you, it'd be great if we could all go there and present this model, because this is something that should only not be replicated in our state of Oregon and our counties and to our state folks. It should be a model that is replicated nationally as a success model that works, because that is one of the reasons I go to these particular meetings, because we learn about best practices and what works. And we have an opportunity to absolutely shine with these projects that we are undergoing, including what we've been doing with increasing our capacity for housing and every other element that goes with it. So I think we're rocking and rolling it, and I think we've been a good team. And I'm glad to be here with that. And I will have a busy week and weekend talking to a women's club this week. And I will also be going to a few other events where I will be speaking, and I'm going to be mentioning this. And we also have, am I correct, colleagues, the state of the county on Thursday that we'll all be attending to. So this is something we should really all claim as a success for our commission. Thank you.
Commissioner Scholl, you are up.
Okay, thank you. Last Wednesday, I had the pleasure of touring the Clackamas Substance Abuse Program facility. Lieutenant Brian Mdiki, I think I pronounced his name correctly, gave me a tour. I was very happy to interact and talk with a lot of the people who are in the program there and hear their positive stories of hope and recovery. They're there because they got involved in crime, and those crimes were also influenced by drug use. So the program is very good. I look forward to going back to a graduation there at CSAP here in the near future to give people some more encouragement for a positive life. Tomorrow night, I will attend the Molalla City Council meeting. This Saturday, I will be attending the Salvation Army fundraiser dinner at the Doubletree at Lloyd Center. And of course, I look forward to Thursday's State of the County at the Monarch at 11:30. It starts at 12 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Commissioner Savas, I saved my questions for your comments until it came around to me. But as we talk about like those different funding sources, it sounds like what you were mentioning was you get some choice as the taxpayer whether you want to pay it at the pump or pay it through being monitored through the vehicle, miles traveled?
Under the current Orgo system, yes.
Okay. Are there strong safeguards that don't allow the slippery slope to not just, there's like a slippery slope argument. People are afraid of the slippery slope, like the abuse of power by the government to be able to track them or monitor them in a way that violates privacy. There's a slippery slope with these taxes being collected, I think, with, where the government of Oregon is insatiable and is always needing more. So is there going to be a point where we can find that you just end up paying both to pay for their fever dreams? Or is there a safeguard that in a clear wall that says no, that you can't just go down the future and say we get the gas tax and the vehicle miles traveled tax, and it really is a distinct choice going forward?
Well, I suppose, to be honest, that's always would be a risk, right? And, you know, I know there's safeguards in place, and whether it's our Constitution in Oregon or there's the U.S. Constitution when it comes to how taxes are raised and what process that requires. But it's not unlike vehicle registration fees. If not this, then that. If it's not this, if it's not tolling, then what? So I think there is always the concern that, you know, it may either be inequitable or may be excessive. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of what is the most cost-effective way of raising money versus the most expensive. We learned from tolling, and I think that Mayor Beliostowski, his public records request and the work that they had done demonstrated that, you know, the cost, I think, that he stated was, you know, upwards of 90% of every dollar would be attributed, at least on the onset, would be attributed to administration costs. Well, that's not an efficient way of raising money.
Right.
I don't have the answer, and I've been asking the question, and I'm going to be digging deeper and deeper with the state. Tell me how much a statewide vehicle miles traveled admin cost would be for every dollar. How much of every dollar raised would be used for admin costs and at a loss, right? But, you know, and I'm hoping when you calculate out the 35 billion miles, if that number is accurate, that'll be a small figure. But we've got to figure out something because a lot of the public feels that electric vehicles are not paying their fair share. Is a vehicle registration the best way to get there? Should we raise it more? It's been raised. I don't have the answer, but I can tell you that when we look at other jurisdictions that have funding resources that are investing in transportation, I think they're reaping the benefits economically, and they're attracting more business and development. And you can just look at Washington County.
Yeah.
They have that MSTIP funding that they got passed years ago. They're building and building roads all the time. I mean, you got to ask yourself when you see a new road being built, how did they fund that? And when you drill down, you'll see that's been an advantage for Washington County.
Yeah, that's true. It has. I guess the tolling issue has, I believe, at least with many of our residents in Clackamas County, caused a trust issue with ODOT. Like, just because we've got Clackamas County, you know, working with 16 cities to spearhead the resistance against these schemes, now there's real trust issues. And so you're asking the questions about affordability around administrating programs like this. Also, it's just, I think if you wanted to build that trust, our conversation, we have to be part of those conversations that you're talking about, but we also need to be championing more fiscal responsibility out of ODOT. I mean, if you look back over the last few long sessions, even like 2015, 2016, I mean, the 2000 House Bill 2017 and before, and House Bill 3055, we've seen just constant increases in transportation taxes. Like, you buy a new car, you're going to get hit with a tax. The gas taxes keep increasing, high gas taxes in the state of Oregon, and all of these other revenue sources. And it's really hard to get an understanding of any waste, fraud, abuse, lack of transparency by ODOT. They weren't very transparency during tolling. And so as we keep talking about opportunities to increase the pocketbooks of the government while taking from the pocketbooks of their Clackamas County residents, it's just hard to not believe that they're going, that at the end of the day, the taxpayer is going to get hit initially with the choice. We have another funding issue, but we already have this set up. So now it's not a choice. You have to pay at the pump and with the vehicle miles traveled. Oh, and we've never, you know, it seems to be somewhat endless in all of the different ways in which we want to increase taxes in the state. I hope that our messaging we want to be part of the conversations that you're having, but I think principally this board, I hope, would have a position of one of accountability and fiscal restraint by the department.
Well, just to be clear, we're not having the conversation. We're trying to figure out where that conversation will be, and we want to be part of. I think that counties and cities want to be part of that conversation. So I'm not out there. We're not out there. No one's out there at a table advocating for fund it this way or use that. But if we're not at the table,
yeah,
and we don't have that opportunity. That's what I'm concerned about, and that's why I'm hoping maybe you and I can talk about how we chat with AOC leadership and how Association of Counties can take up a stronger role in this, because I'm concerned that the League of Oregon Cities is not going to be maybe as strong on this issue as AOC is. So, or do we want to just sit back and just put all our faith that the legislature will get it right?
That sounds terrifying.
All I'm saying is that we want to be at the table. We're not at the position right now of saying, do it this way or do it that way or don't do this. We don't know. We don't have the answers. I don't know what it's going to cost.
Part of that, we have to make part of our conversation accountability and transparency with current funding and the billions that they already have. I just have zero trust beyond them being like this monstrous blob, just like growing the size of their department and just like sucking in everyone else's resources as they grow and grow and grow with no real effectiveness or plan or accountability to the residents and the citizens and local communities. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, what I'm hearing through the grapevine is that there is going to be a transportation package conversation in the next legislative session. And of course, my ultimate hope is it does not involve tolling, but again, having everybody at the table come up with a solution. And I do agree with you that the Association of Oregon Counties would be a good spot to have that larger conversation because they have a Transportation and Economic Development Committee that will probably take this on for us. So I'm hopeful. I do think there's going to be a conversation. And I do know a bit about the structure of ODOT because part of the issue is it's a large organization with multiple agencies under one umbrella, and they are not always coordinated together. And that is an institutional, long-term structural problem that they're going to have to figure out and solve. So,
Commissioner Scholl.
my thoughts on it.
Well, like I said before, I believe that the people are being taxed enough. Government is just getting too expensive. The money is there if there's a will to prioritize the needs of the people of this nation. In the last 4 or 5 months, we've seen over $200 billion go towards a conflict in Eastern Europe. $200 billion. Now, a fraction of 1/500 of that money would have paid for the I-205 expansion. That gives you a perspective of how small our needs are in compared to, the money that's out there. The other thing, too, to remember is that few people would argue that the expansion of I-205 is the number one highway improvement need in our region. Okay? Primary north-south transportation and freight use that road, that highway. Buttigieg came out and miraculously came up with $450 million towards the Albina Rose Quarter project, okay, which is a $2 billion project. So before we tax the people and business anymore, we need to look at what do we have to work with currently in our state budget, county budget, federal budget, to do the things that are really truly important and not the boondoggle things. Because at the federal level, we see decisions being made in our U.S. Congress that are patting the good buddies on the back, because a lot of that $200 billion goes to corporations that will make a lot of money on that money, that $200 billion. And so, again, is there a will in ODOT and in Salem to build I-205? I don't see it. I don't see it. Thank you.
Commissioner Salvers.
Yeah, I just want to remind you all that, for example, the I-205 project, when it was passed in 2017, was estimated to be, the Abernathy Bridge alone was $250 million, and the lanes were $250 million. That was what came out in early 2018 as the reporting to the state legislature of the cost of that project. Since then, that project's almost, the Abernathy Bridge is somewhere between double and triple currently today because of inflation. And we can't deny no family, I don't care what age group you are, no family can go to the store and go shopping and say they haven't experienced a stark increase in cost. No one could go to the gas pumps and say they haven't experienced a stark increase in gas, fuel cost, heating, electricity, everything's going up. So for us to pretend that you can have a fixed amount of money and have all these increases and have that reconcile and balance out, no, it's not happening. So I think we need to be cognizant that those pressures are significant. I don't have the answer, but I do want to remind you all that the C4 retreat in early June, please be there. We'll all, with the cities, be the first day's transportation. So we're going to be talking about our values, not ideas on how to fund, but our values and how we progress with our statement to the state legislature and everyone else, our messaging. Be there for that, because that's, we want to be part of the shaping this, and if we're not proactive, it's going to happen to us.
Commissioner Scholl.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say I'm not pretending anything. My concern is that if solutions, considering the current amount of taxation that businesses and families are having to pay, if solutions require them to pay more, that's no solution. Something's got to give. And it shouldn't be families and small business.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that any one of us were not recognizing or whatnot. It's just the realization that we're in this inflationary period, and I think we're all trying to grapple with what it is. And then, frankly, I've had a couple projects in my house I simply postponed because I simply can't afford them because the cost got just so high. So there's a lot of things I'm not doing. And if we don't want to do something, the other part of the equation is don't spend it, don't put it on the, but look at that traffic circle on Lake Oswego. Now, whether or not we move forward with it is one thing, but look at what that cost initially. Yeah. The initial estimate was far less. Inflation is what has driven that cost to be double, triple of what it was. So as we approve things and they're in our capital plan, we either scale it back to say or we progress forward and figure out, hopefully, that there'll be a means to get there. But I think there is that mathematical reconciliation that has to be done in almost everything. And the last thing I'll say on this is that too often people look at money here, money there, and realize that in Oregon, for example, it's against the law constitutionally to spend take gas tax or road monies and spend them on anything else but that. And vice versa, that you can't spend property tax dollars without voter approval on roads or highways. Those are constitutionally disallowed. So when someone says, oh, well, the state's doing this, they should just take that money and spend it here. Well, constitutionally, that's not allowed. And that's why these revenue streams are, you have to look at it in what the revenue stream is, what's allowed by law, and how it's designed. And you can't spend homeless solution dollars on building a highway or a bridge or a pothole. We can't do that, nor we can take the gas tax money and spend it on hotel rooms for people that are homeless. That's independent funding. So please be at the retreat.
Absolutely, be at the retreat. It'll be a good conversation. I just hope that as we stay galvanized with our city partners, that we take up some of the tone that Commissioner Scholl is bringing up, though. Like, I think people have every right to have a skeptical opinion and has to be skeptical of ODOT's actions based on the behavior we all have had to endure. And when they have billions and billions and billions of taxpayer dollars for that purpose, and we don't have a clear plan and an ever-moving goalpost, we need to have some reassurances that that they're accountable to the public a little more. Thanks for the conversation, and I think we needed to maybe have that conversation, and we're probably not done about where we're going to land as a board. We'll do some of that at the C4 retreat. And with that, I will save any other comments for the future meetings that we have later this week, and at this time, we are adjourned.